In this video, we're going to review and sound check the ACO Vintage White linear switches, starting with the stock sound test, White Now. Now, I did lube half of these switches to see what these sound like, but before I give you that sound test, let me actually hit you with these switch details, because I think this is interesting. The Vintage Whites are a linear switch, roughly smooth, all the way down and back up, 3 pins, vintage white colored bottom housing and stem, but it's a clear top housing. Now, the insides. This is the longest spring in these ACO switches. It's a 22 millimeter classic spring. It's not as compressed as some of the other like rose red switches and stuff like that. The longest spring, but it has the lightest actuation force. It's like 35G actuation force. I think I remember that correctly, which is really light. And these things sort of balance each other out to give it a really nice tappy feel. Now, I will give you some of my Pete's thoughts after typing on these switches for a while after the sound test, but let's go ahead and jump in and do some comparisons. And I will point out, these are all unlubed, the left side of the keyboard, and I lubed the right side, just so we can get a little contrast. Let's dive into some sound tests, and then meet me afterward right here in the video for Pete's thoughts. Espresso. Welcome back to Pete's Thoughts. And I got 3 things. Number 1, stock right out of the box. Number 2, factory lube. Number 3, how they sound and feel. So, number 1, I think these are my favorite stock linear switches that I've tried. Out of all the linear switches that I have personally put my fingers on, I think these are amazing. Right out of the box, throw these in, and it's a nice tappy sound, which we'll talk about more in a second. Stock, out of the box. They sound great. Lubing them, it maybe enhanced the look, sound, or the sound and feel, but not a ton. Great, stock out of the box. Numero dos. Part of the reason why is I think they were factory lubed. Now, on the ACO website, if you go and buy all these ACO CS switches, they say something like lightly lubed from the factory and yada yada. I bought mine off AliExpress months ago in a huge pack, and I tried the matcha greens from ACO. I saw no lube. I felt no lube. I could see no evidence that they were factory lubed. These Vintage Whites, on the other hand, I felt it, right? These are one of the only switches that said they're factory lubed that actually feel factory lubed. I think that's amazing. I think that's a huge plus, and I think that's why they sound great. Stock. Right into your keyboard from the box. Now let me summarize with the sound and feel. They feel and sound, actually, tappy. That's my one word for the vintage whites, and in a good way, by the way. I really like this. They're not as soft and muted as like some blacks, some cherry blacks, the jelly blacks, and all the other Gateron ink blacks. They're not that smooth and muted. They're like a little bit more higher pitched and crisp, but it's a nice like tap tap sound. It's actually similar to how good clicky switches sound, but without the actual high-end click. It's a nice little tap tap, and I actually really like that. Feel, you can tell that the actuation force is lighter, but I really do think that this massive classic 22mm spring, it balances out. It's not super like uncomfortably fast and light. Whenever I try a speed switch, it's like a little bit that's too much for me, right? I like a little bit of resistance, and I think the spring helps with that. It's a good balance. It's kind of weird, but big spring, low actuation force, they feel nice and smooth and tappy, and they sound a little tappy too. So that's my review of the vintage whites. Oh wait, hang on. So that's my review of the vintage white switches. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave me a like and a comment if you want to help support this YouTube channel, and I hope you come right back to this channel in the future to see more switch videos. Go check out these other Akamagic Greens and Jelly Black videos. I'll leave a link in the description below because those are really similar, really related. And that's all I got for you. Have a vintage day.